All right, we should be everybody want to fatherhood, do, fatherhood talks. That's the open theme music for the night. Uh, so we're here again. Glasses on. All right, good night. Welcome again, Tuesday night, Fatherhood Talks. This is the Father Think Tank, where we begin to think about the ideas and bring things to fathers and to the rest of the community on what fathers are thinking about, how fathers are talking, and how fathers are in action. Tonight, we have a great topic for you. Again, I'm the facilitator, Ron Williams. As I will always say, hey, like, share, subscribe. The more of you that watch, the more of you that like, the more of you that even if you go back and look at some of these old tapes, man, some of these old broadcasts, some of these old meetings, man, it's powerful. You hear some things that you can really share with community, share with your partner, share with other fathers, share with other men, even share with the women, just to be able to get a little small point of maybe being able to start a conversation that normally you're not able to have or even have a point to even start that conversation at. Because a lot of times our conversations always start with negatives. And we're not taking negatives. We're trying to take negatives, make them positive, and so we can move forward, being optimistic sometimes. And so we got the guys here tonight, the rest of the fathers. I'm gonna let the fathers who are here tonight introduce themselves. And then we're gonna get on with our topic for the night. Our topic for the night, and let me just say this topic is amazing. Are you a just man or just a man? Are you a just man or are you just a man? So let me introduce the rest of the fathers. Go ahead, guys, introduce yourself. Let's get into this topic and figure out, are we just men? Are we just men?
Hey, good evening, actually. My name is Lionel Lightborn. I am a husband and a father to a tribe of 7 and 1 granddaughter.
Adams, child of 3, grandfather of 1, which is here right now.
Okay, I'll jump in. Larry Jordan, father of 2, grandfather of 1.
Did we lose Rohan? Rohan there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, what happened to you? What happened?
I'm here, man. I'm here. Hey, guys.
I was gonna say, man. I was gonna say. Okay, go ahead, brother.
I'm here. Yes, the Ruhan Rodok, father of 2 young ladies, teenagers. Great to be here on the show and to empower fathers.
All right, so we got a small group tonight, but it don't matter how big we are, because we got the big brains on deck tonight, really big ones. so we ain't got. Well, so listen. Let's jump right into this, man. I know that when we look at events that occur, a lot of times we look to, maybe people feel that we should be Superman. We should be super. Somebody told me yesterday. I don't think that he didn't say I was a superhero. He said I live my life like a superhero. And I was like, well, I don't understand what that means, because I ain't rescuing nobody. I'm not intentionally trying to rescue nobody. I'm not out here saying I think people need me. But he was just saying that, sometimes maybe I should just say, I don't know sometimes. Maybe I should just say, they'll figure it out. It'll work itself out. And I thought about that, and I said, well, that might sound good, but probably won't be my nature. I'm not the kind of person that's comfortable to watch the world fall down around me while I eat a ham sandwich and drink a beer. I'm probably gonna say, hey man, it's something we can do to change this and make it different. So and I thought about that, thinking of coming into today's topic. Are you a just man? Are you a just a man? And 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 that led me to that idea that I don't do those things because I want to. I just do them because it's the right thing to do as the man that I believe I am. And I say that a lot more because I'm back working in doing some work in the public schools, and man, I'm seeing a lot of things that I was away from for a while. And now it's whole. Hey man, this new generation, man, let me say this: they need us more than we ever could imagine right now. They need our guidance. They need us to not come down on them, but they also need us to also not let them cop out. And I thought about it because I was going to one place and I ended up getting stuck in this position because I think of that whole, am I just a man or am I just man? And I felt like, hey, I could just be a man saying this ain't my problem to keep moving. But in this case, I felt like, stepping in and moving into that place would be important. Now, imagine if we took that, and I want to bring it, I gave that whole disclosure to bring it back to us being fathers. If we, looked at ourselves as saying, oh, I'm just a man, we're going to go into being, maybe a little bit more, I'm going to be a just man when it comes to being a father. And how does that play itself out? What does it look like?
Well, it's amazing you said that. You alluded to it when you said that the difference in the two. I think one excuses the other, right? And so we can use, but I'm just a man. You understand? To excuse us not being just men. You understand? So when you say I'm just a man, it almost like gives you a cop out or an excuse to not be a just man. And that's the difference. When you're talking about what you're talking about, and I think I have that struggle myself, that's why we have so many things in common. You're talking about the difference between being everybody's help and nobody's hero, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we would owe the world that, to be everybody's help but nobody's hero. And so what that says is even if we were content, you understand, we're willing to be uncomfortable. It's our choice, right? To be uncomfortable at any given time, not simply because we're uncomfortable, but because we see somebody else uncomfortable. And I don't even see how people can live in their comfortability and watch other people be uncomfortable and not, and still be content. That's the word I'm looking for. And so with that, being a just man is something I think that we all aspire to be. It's that righteous side of you, that caring side of you, that's the humane side of you. It's that it's the advocate in you, it's the activist in you. Some men, and I think me and you, Ron, and most of us on here, we function in a professional privilege rather, when it comes to that, because we got access to all the training and advocacy it takes to really activate the just men in us. You understand? To rescue us from being just a man. And so I think that professional privilege just rescue us and really enlighten us and activate us from our male privilege. And so that's where that advantage comes from for most of us who have done any type of social work or human services work or stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's a lot of times that we want to be a just man, and we find that we are just a man. I had a talk with my son last night. He gave me a call at midnight, and he said, "Dad, man, you know, a white guy called me the N-word today." I said, "Really?" And so basically, the circumstances was he was at Publix, and he parked in a place where he wasn't supposed to park. It wasn't the handicap spots, but you know how they have a little baby thing of, you know. And to make a long story short, when he comes out, the guy says, "You weren't supposed to park there." And he said, "Yeah, but I'm leaving anyway." He said, "No, but you don't get the point. You weren't supposed to park there." And so he said, the guy told him, "Man, see, you acting just like a nigga." And then he pulled off. Okay. And I told my son, I said, you know, now it would have been just for you to respond in kind, you know, but you have to realize that, first of all, you didn't do the right thing. And what I mean by that is that you didn't park in the space you were supposed to park in. So if you had parked in the right space, probably nothing would have happened anyway. This whole situation came up because you were in the wrong space, you know. So I wanted to be a just man and say, well, you should have went out there and bust his head down to the white meat, you know. But being just a man, I knew that he was actually wrong. So it can go both ways.
Mhm. Okay. I don't know. I wonder what kind of, you know, if I wonder what would man.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Hey, man, that get me for a minute, because I realized that you can lose your just status with some of the things that happen to you.
Very quickly.
Yes. Because I'm just thinking to myself, is, you know, what make you feel comfortable to you know, okay, you can think that you can tell me that I was doing something wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then when you go and take it to the next level to bring that colloquial term in there, because I would beg to differ that that's not the correct usage of the term, because, you know, in their term, the niggas do everything the right way under the oppression that's supposed to be happening. That you know, his son was actually being a rebel. You know, in my mind, I don't know, revolutionary. Mm-hmm. I'm a park where I want to park it. But see, again, that's me looking at it in another way. And, you know, in that case. But when he said it, you know, I always wonder that question: would that person say that same thing to you if they look like you? And what do they say then? Hey, man, you know you ain't supposed to park there, brother. You know, listen, they don't even, I realize a lot of times people don't really say anything to each other.
It's you know, I looked at it from my point. Go ahead, Rohan. Go ahead.
You know, I back in the days when I used to jog, I've been called that many times when I jog in my neighborhood. And
where Rohan? Where you was at? In
Margate, jog. I go jogging.
In your neighborhood in Margate.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So
that's Margate, Florida.
I don't want to say it because we're on a program. So let's just, there's different markets. Let's continue. So we jogging and the person's riding the bicycle, and it is said discreetly, and it is said. One of the things I say to fathers is that sometimes, you know, sometimes you don't need to engage. And even though the words the words gonna come, the words are said because that person is hurt and that person wanna hurt you or want you to engage. Mm-hmm. If you notice, he said he mentioned the word and he drove away. So he knew what he was doing, but he had to get it off his chest. Mm-hmm. So most times I would say, you know, hurt people. Don't engage them because that person is trying to get you out of your space. out of your lane.
Mhm.
And mind you, there's for me, there's a right time and place for everything. So
Yeah, you know, especially like because he was in a plantation, you know, to start with, and this was on this
Oh,
guy's side anyway. This was just, you know, he was just looking for an opportunity to do something like that, and you
Mhm.
know, but what I told my son, I said, listen, um, you have to realize though that you're not going to receive the same kind of justice that you would if you were a Caucasian. The justice system is different. That does not mean that you should not fight. But what that means is that you have to be aware and you have to be smarter than um, what normally, even if you were within your rights, you still have to be smarter about how you do things. I'm not saying bow down at all, you know, because it doesn't involve bow down, but it's like, no, a lot of times it's in your tone, you know. I say your tone means a lot, you know. And so if you know you're right, you don't have to scream and yell and hold up your fist. You say, no, I'm right. And I'm gonna stand up for my rights, period. You know. Now you still gonna receive injustice and you got to be real, but you shouldn't. But you know, the fact is, we live in that kind of world today, and you just have to be smart. I just tell them, say, be smart about what you do.
But I think LJ, you're right. I think that advice you gave your son was you were being a just man, not just a man. Because if you're being just a man, you would have told him to just be a fool. You know what I'm saying? And he would have got introduced to that fool in all of us. Because I'm like, certain things are instinctive. And so I think because we are human beings, you don't have a right to provoke me neither. You understand? You don't have a right to get in my space, and you damn sure don't got a right to threaten me. And so I think the guy was a coward. He had planned to be a coward. Yeah, he gets no point for any type of courage because he was already in the leaving position, and he knew that he can, what they call it, he don't even get the fight or flight response because he was already prepared to say his insult and flight. So that's the average cowards that we have to be used to in society. I don't even want to charge with racism because I'm like, even in being a racist, then you can be a courageous racist and stand your ground. They got the law to protect you. You understand? Shoot your shot. You understand? If you mean what you say and you're willing to die for it, then go ahead and do what you do. You understand? But I don't think that we have to give people the right? Because they don't have an entitlement. You understand? To our tolerance. You don't have an entitlement to my forgiveness. You don't have an entitlement to my peace. And so I still have an instinctive right and a human right to engage you however, you understand, you engage me. You understand? And I think oftentimes because we're conditioned and by choice as a people, historically by choice because it's very calculated. So I don't want people to think that our being conditioned is out of some type of coward or cow downing type instinct. It's a very intentional conditioning for progressive and proactive reasons. You understand? So we can be preserved to fight another day while we garner our allies being only 13% or 14% of the population. So I think that is very calculated that our forefathers knew that, and they were very conscious on how they condition us to get thus far. You understand? So we can go ahead and recondition our children to be the champions that they are. But to just think that you can get away with that kind of stuff, I'm like, no, that was cowardness because you're right. He took off and did what he normally do. Run. Great runners. You understand? Great.
Track star.
Right. Great. That's what I mean. Talking about fight or flight. Got a history of flight. You understand, in his heritage. the minute
Mm.
Black people or African people or people of color come in his sphere. And so he did exactly what he always, and he was taught to always do.
Right.
Insult and flight. And so I think your son just being raised the way he was, to be culturally humane, you understand, he didn't lose anything in that interaction.
Let's talk about that right there, Lon. I think that is where we get to this point of why this idea of, are we just man? Are we a just man? Is that the son? First, let's just talk about what the son did in response to it. He had the guidance, obviously, prior to this, from the teaching of his mother and his father, mainly as a man, on what things he should do just in case this happens. And the reason why we know that is because Larry is telling us about it in reference to his son coming to his father to tell him that. I want people to really listen. I'm about to turn to a preacher now, because these things are so vital that you look at. Larry, how old your son is again? You say 50.
No,
I'm
25.
sorry, 35.
Oh, I was about to say, I know he ain't no 50 now. He older than me now. Come on. That here's a 35-year-old man who experienced something. He knew how to respond to it. And then he went back and got the counsel from the elder that taught him what to do and how should he continue to involve in this situation. And this is what we have to begin to remember, that why we're so important in our children's life. They're looking for the model from us to what to do. They got models right now telling them to do things that is not the way. That's not just. You know, if dudes say, hey, let's pop these caps, let's roll up on the ops. You know, if I, as a dad, I said, that ain't how we handle things, son. Who do you think got more power? Son, have you seen me roll up on an op? Have you seen me be a coward? Have you seen me be a bitch ass nigga or any of those things because I ain't going out and doing something to somebody, killing somebody, beating somebody up? No, the guy can say whatever he wants to me because he don't know me. I'm a man. You can say whatever you want to me, but if you try to treat me like I'm not a man, you'll find out how much a man I am, but I ain't got to show you that. And I think that's what we, and if you're not seeing that, if our children are not seeing that, both our boys and our girls, then what they working on, what they working for, what's their blueprint? Castro, I see your hand up, brother.
Bro, dope. You dropped it. You said it. That's the human dilemma. Men ain't showing up for men, right? That's what we're talking about. How do you advocate when we don't even know how to advocate for ourselves, right? How do I advocate for my two little men when I sometimes don't even know how to advocate for myself in dangerous positions that I'm in, toxic relationships that I'm in with my spouse or my job or whoever? How do we, man, I don't even know what the conversation was originally, but I love the topic that we're on. It just blows my mind how, can I read something to the group? I'm doing it regardless.
Just be careful.
There we go. Our deepest fear, hold on. Our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. I'm going to read the whole thing to y'all. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is not our light, it is our darkness that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightening about shrinking yourself so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. And not just some of us. It's in everyone. As we all let our own light shine, we unconsciously give one another, we give each other permission to do the same. As we liberate from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Marianne Williamson. That came to my awareness last week at Toastmasters. And I realized that when my greatest, I don't serve the world. Getting hazed in the back. If you are playing small, you're shortchanging society. Right? You cheating yourself. You cheating the world from your greatness. I gotta go. I'm about to put a lock on this truck. Hey, if y'all are gonna donate some resources to people in Iron or that have been affected by Hurricane Ian, I'm out here with Rotary Club collecting donations. Service and duty, man. We gotta get this done. So I gotta jump out and do this, but I wanted to say I always appreciate this group and how you guys move. Ron, bro, you dropped it, bro. That was dope. That was dope. So I think I sidetracked a minute, but just as men, if we don't shine, nothing shines. Like nothing moves. We're the pillars. We are the pillars of our society. It starts with us. Let me
you better go get that pillar now. Hey, you better go handle that pillar, Castro, because they ain't them joking. Hey, they telling you, hey, don't play with us, man. That's how the kids. Hey, that's how the kids are. And imagine this. Here, let's just use Castro's situation right here as an example of what we're talking about. Look at Castro with his kids going to do something, and the kids need the attention. He with them. He with them every day. He's dad in the house, and the kids need him. So just imagine what it is that our kids need, and we not with them.
And to add to that, Ron, sometimes the mothers, I talk to a lot of fathers who have issues with the mother, and I tell the fathers, you can go to the school and volunteer at the school. The mom can try and keep you around or keep you away and play the game. But there's ways you can get to your children if you want to be in your children's life. You know, so don't give up.
Hey, listen.
I heard what you said, bro. And let me tell you something, bro. I went to a PTA training the other day. Hold on. Ron, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We hear you.
All right. So I went to a PTA function the other day, a PTA training. You want to talk where the black male is missing? Those kind of rooms where the influence is made for the decisions on how the kids are educated and trained to trainers. Right. There was no black people in that room. The black people were the black women, the ones that care, the educators, the ancient mamas that taught the kids how to read when they were the slaves, right? That's who's still in that industry, but there's no voice of men stepping in for that. And I realized the void. I'm like, dang, go ahead. And when you think about it, we're so consumed with how to get this paper, how to get this, how to get that no one is saying, how do we each get better and show up at our societies the best way, right? Like, what does that look like? Right? I went to a SAC meeting today at 2:15, took the haze, and I'm sitting in the room, and the lady is asking for a $500 stipend to buy a printer. And the principal's like, all right, let me get back to you. Let me look at the budget. I'm like, yo, we got $9,500 in here. I make a motion to buy this printer for $500. Oh, it's $450. Well, you take the extra $50 and buy supplies. I asked for a motion, a second, and it was approved. Why? Because I know Robert Rules of Order. And the shit is getting done tomorrow, not 3 weeks from when the principal gets to it, because he ain't got to figure out the money, right? So if we don't do that stuff because we don't know that we have access to that, how do we make an impact? You feel what I'm saying? And as a dad, bro, you don't even have to have a child at the school. Yeah, yes. No, no, you can't go that way. That's dangerous. There's a limit on danger. If you as an uncle, I'm gonna join Hollywood South Broward PTA because I can do that. Bro, the system is there for us to be great. We choose not to fucking be great. That's really the problem. It's there's no models of that kind of greatness. Right? Well, not that I see, and I just live, I can't say that there isn't, because Lightborn looks like he's that type of motherfucker, so I can't say that. So yeah, right? And I know the men that I rock with, so, iron sharpens iron. I just think that there's a blueprint out there to be followed, and everybody just wants to argue on whose is better, and let's pick one and go, man. Action. Yeah. Yes.
I would even say even better than I think this. I was in a conversation where people were talking about what is the best way, and I have a problem with having an argument about what's the best way. Just do it. Just stand up and do it. Listen, while you saying their way is good, this way is good, that way, listen. Meanwhile, nobody's doing anything because we trying to figure out what's the best way. Just do what you've been doing in our neighborhoods with our own kids, with our own community. But we got to do it. The point is doing it. Not waiting on some great leader to come and tell us how to do it. All right, this is how it's going to be done. We just got to get up and say, listen, I'm going to go put a basketball goal in front of my house and have basketball in front of my house. And for all the kids that come there, before I let them play basketball, I'm going to teach them some manners, teach them some certain things, and then we're going to play basketball. That you'll have a more profound effect on the young men in your community because you bringing them in with something that they want to do, something they like. And then you are somebody, I think, as a man, a father, whatever, guiding them with something they might be missing. And that's a good substitute. But I feel more strongly about the actual DNA provider, because the DNA provider knows that DNA that they got right there in front of them. You might not know all. You might know at least 50% of that DNA in front of you. You might not know the other 50%, but you know 50% of it.
I want to pick up on something that Castro said about the schools, and with me being in an elementary school for so many years, that's predominantly, I mean, 97, 98% female driven. You're almost looked at, guys are men are looked at as almost like outsiders. It's like, if you bring up a situation, you get looked at as like, oh, you talking? Why are you even talking? We running things up in here. It's like nobody's even trying to listen to you. And so
bro, that is so real.
Yeah. So that's a challenge in itself, but we have to force our way in there. And also we have to really convince men that it's worth their time to do that, because you can always think of something else you can do, but it has to be a viable choice for us to say, no, I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna speak on this curriculum, and I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna say, no, we need to do certain things that I think that would benefit especially Black males, to keep them out the pipeline. That school to prison pipeline is real. It's real. And it starts in that first 3-4 grades, that kindergarten to third grade kind of determines, because those kids fall behind from that point. And just to catch up in itself is rigorous, So I really appreciate that, and I think that's something that that men we need to look into. I don't know how y'all feel about it.
Well, I mean, I think that, you know, Larry, that goes right into what the topic we're talking about. Are we just men? Are we a just man? You know, listen, I know listen, I will say this without a doubt. I know and understand how busy our life as men can be. I know we got to make sure we get these ducats. You know, we don't have the luxury to say we're going to call in sick or not show up, you know, when we not the boss. And even if we are the boss, we might not can afford to do that either because we the boss. Ain't nobody else doing the work. So if I say I'm going to work, I might not get paid today. So you start looking at this, but we also have to, you know, start to do, I think, and more than anything, balance. Look at some balance of finding ways that if we have, and I'm saying this, to the fathers that have full access and accessibility to their children. Because not all of us have that full access and accessibility. But if you do, take advantage for them brothers who don't. Take advantage. Go. Listen, just say, listen. Go and say, like, call the mama, call your child's mother, tell your wife, listen, I'm gonna start leaving work early just to pick the kids up. You can take them to work, but I'm gonna leave work early. I'm gonna try to find a way so I can pick them up every day. And I know that may seem how I'm gonna do that, but it can be done. You just gotta find a way to you know, you gotta be able to fix it and work it into that. Because you know what the kids will remember? My dad came pick me up from school every day. When they 30 years old and somebody start talking, they'll say, I remember my dad picked me up every day. You know what the highlight of the week was? On Friday, if I had a good week, everything was good, to me get some ice cream. Like took me, we went to the mall and walked around. Just being able, listen, these little things, look, we're not even talking about values and morals and teaching up. We're just talking about the time to be able to be with them. That builds those memories, that also builds the sermon that they get to see. You know, we don't even know how powerful that time with them is. We just think we with them. But kids are so developmental that they're learning from every little thing and everything that we do. They watching, their brain is calculating. Oh, I see my dad on the phone telling people, you know, this, oh, I see this. So they smart enough to know. You know, sometimes we discount our kids and not be that smart, but they smart. They get it. And that's how they can get you and the mama arguing when you didn't plan on arguing with each other. Y'all went in the room together and they done put boogie y'all in the being against each other. And now they in the room playing the game.
Yeah, I'm not that familiar with the situation, but as a dad that's separated from their children, or a mother that won't let the dad see their children, I would think that actually visiting the school and being involved in that school would actually benefit them almost more than anything else, because
Right.
you know, now you've got many times the principal on your side, you got his teacher on your side, because if you're the one volunteering and you're the ones that attending the PTA meetings, you know, that's gonna come up in conversation when they talk to the mom. And they're gonna say, well, I don't understand. He's always here, you know, and that it might lead to more trouble. Maybe that just would lead to more trouble. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I ain't talking about the mom. I'm talking about how it's gonna lead for the kid.
Yeah.
When the kid know their dad is at the school or involved in the school, and that teacher say, your dad going up here today. Listen, you know, these kids recognize. I'm gonna tell your dad how good you.
Bro, my son came home today. Was like, I heard you were at my school. My son literally just told me that when Joaquin, how did you know I was at your school today?
Because you had a sticker,
Okay.
a PTA sticker.
Well,
They
see,
know.
see what I'm saying? See what I mean by that? He knows because he knows the sticker
Tire.
of the
Yes,
school.
another tire. Come, get
Then
in the
what
car.
I'm telling you,
In the car.
these
In the
kids
car.
know this stuff, man. These kids are intuitive, and
I
we
need you in the
sometimes
car.
play them for stupid, man.
Joaquin,
And
get in
so
the car.
imagine if they're not getting any of that. Imagine if they're not getting any of this exposure to things. You know, what do they think about? Do anybody care about? I think about this more than anything. Does anybody care about me other than my mom? If you take a survey, I'll tell you, if you take a survey, if you ask kids who care about them more than anybody else, I'm pretty sure you're going to get that 98.99% of the kids say they mama. Even in the house where the dads are. Even in the house where the dads are. So, you know, I think that's a big thing for us to sometimes really think about, you know, what our influence and the opportunities that we have to be not just a man, but a just man.
Ron,
You know, I was thinking about, oh, go ahead, Ron.
well, cultures have a lot to do with it too. Thanks to Lightburn. That's something we can change overnight, where cultures is concerned, where mom is seen as the nurturers and fathers are seen as, in most cases, the provider. So to add to what Ron is saying, we can, if you're in a situation where you're out there, you're providing for your child and you're doing what a man's supposed to do, a just man's supposed to do. I think Ron is just saying, just budget your time. Just be. You can still be a just man, but you can still be a nurturer too. And just to let you know, the school, when you go to that school and volunteer, that's on record. A lot of guys don't know that. You sign in. Remember that sticker that he said he saw on his father's chest? That thing is signed in. So the system also knows you're there. So, you know, Ron, I support you. But well, I thought.
Yeah, he's actually right. And I shouldn't have had the sticker because I didn't sign out. And that's how they know how long I was there. So yes, that's if you need to keep track from a conversation, documentation of a conversation. If you're in that kind of scenario with your spouse or whatever it is, I was at the school for this hour. I was there. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing bad. Ain't a bad look on you if you get stuck at the school while you're there. You know what I'm saying? You're here. You're involved.
Dad,
Yes.
we need this flag. We need a flag.
Yes, we need a new flag at the house.
But Ron, you guys said, back to what Castro said, he said we're supposed to advocate. When he originally started out, he said we should advocate for each other. Now the question is what that looked like. And so when we're talking about advocating for each other, and I'm not just talking about as men, but just simply as human beings, then we're going to find ourselves on a normal and regular basis advocating for each other's ignorance, right? And because your knowledge, right? Your knowledge served my ignorance, just like my knowledge may serve your ignorance. Historically, I think whatever we're conditioned to be in history, then we get so conditioned to be it that we become instinctively territorial. And so back to LJ's point about going to the school and they be like, what you doing here? You understand? What you doing in this non-gender role? You understand? This is not your gender. You ought to, or better yet, we love to say this, and people love to say this, it's very popular. You're not in your lane. You understand?
Right.
And so I think historically, you understand, if we're going to change the trajectory or the direction of these gender lanes and start to make them non-gender lanes, so not only we can aspire to be just men, but women can be just women as well. And kids can be just kids, because if you got a just man and a just woman, and we're not training that child to be a just kid, you understand? Then it's still a failure, a failed company. But if everybody is conditioning themselves to be just at every point, which means that, okay, I am doing my part as a father, that woman doing her part as a mother, and that child, and we're putting the expectation on that child to do his or her part as a child, then we can start to understand and see what the family will achieve, what they call real justice within that family. And so now you don't have a just inheritance, but we have to look at the realistic stuff. Like I'm talking about from birth. From birth, the mom is going to leave that hospital with paperwork, right? And if you're not married to that woman, you're not leaving the hospital with no paperwork. And so you will leave that hospital as a parent, but you will be a parent in theory when it comes to being a father. And if you don't have any paperwork, or at least paperwork or permission, you understand? Paperwork or permission, be it the mom's permission to get on that child's emergency contact list, then you're non-existent at the school as well. So you can't even you can't go to the school because you're a stranger. You understand? Because you're not on the child registration form. And so again, this is why we have to advocate. And I'm talking about sometimes we have to advocate through simple conversation. When we greet men, whether you know them or not, first of all, when you ask how they're doing, no, you don't ask how the individual man doing. You talk to the total man and say, how you doing? How your family? You understand? I remember they did, we was in one of the fatherhood programs, and the young lady came in and did a presentation. She said in Africa that they greet each other. They don't greet each other how you doing. They greet each other by asking, how's the family doing? And so if we put that fatherhood responsibility in the forefront of that man's mind every time you meet him, and put a demand on him being a father and a demand on his accountability to that family, then it should show up in a greeting way before it shows up in the strategy that we have to become better men in society.
That you know, there's so many little nuggets that we when we talking about one thing, we drop.
Come on.
You know, that's a really good nugget right there. And that is something I do, Lionel. You know, I want to text people sometimes, and I know that they have a wife, I know they have kids, I get ready to speak to them. And it's by nature that I almost feel uncomfortable to say, what's up with you? Without thinking first and foremost, hey man, how the kids doing? How the wife? That's how people don't know. Sometimes people get divorced because they never asked about the wife. You never asked about any of those things. You only asking that one person, but that person is the family. He's not isolated. If you make him isolated, then he out. Listen, hey boy, the reason I got excited because it just the thing just went in my head. I'm sorry. The reason I got excited because it went in my head to realize that when we do that to him, we remind him of what his position is and what he's doing. I know that people ask me all the time, how your daughter doing? And it puts me back in a place to say, she's okay. No matter how far I done got all the way out here that, you know, with situations. And we have to do, these are things as men we have to do to other men. Because a woman can ask you how your daughter doing, right? She can ask you that. It ain't the same for me asking you how your daughter doing. Because that ain't what I'm supposed to ask you about. I'm supposed to ask you about, well, how about them Eagles beating up on the Jacksonville Jaguars? That's all I'm supposed to talk to you about. I'm not supposed to talk to you about, hey, how your wife doing? Everything good with y'all? How the kids? How your grandbaby? Now I'm changing the dynamics of who you are in the conversation we have, because now I done become another man asking a father about his life. Not another man asking another man about his life. The next thing you might tell me about, hey man, I got the honey snake link over here. Listen, see that's outside of what we trying to be. That's outside of what we need to be trying to be.
But you're on point, Ron, 100%. You know what? This is a good think tank we got going on right here, because it's just we evolving in this conversation of we don't even acknowledge the persons we become. And so I'm married, and people are still addressing me as if I'm single. I'm a father, but people still addressing me like I'm not. You understand? And so I think we are so disrespected personally in our personal life than we are in our professional. Because if I became a doctor, I would put a demand on you addressing me as being a doctor because I put the work in. If I became a lawyer, I put a demand on it because I put the work in. But when it comes to our personal life, when we accomplish a marriage, when we accomplish fatherhood, when we accomplish all those things that truly matter and that will truly last, because your career will peak at 30 years. You understand? But your marriage should last a lifetime. Your fatherhood should last a lifetime, all the way into the next third and fourth and sixth generation, if not the end of time. But we rarely cultivate that in our conversations. But I can tell you something I do see. I've seen people, and this like it became contagious for me because there's a Muslim friend of mine out of Miami, Brother Lal Muhammad. Every time I see him, he had done did it so much, then I adopted it. And he say, "Hey, how you doing, fam?" And I'm like, "Fam." And the first time it was a little awkward, and then he said it more, and he said it more, and it reconditioned the way I started complimenting others. And so now I don't say, "Hey, how you doing?" Whatever. My job is, "How you doing, fam?" Because when I'm speaking to you, I'm not only just speaking to you, I'm speaking to your whole family and the family after you. And so what he did was his welcome became generational when he spoke to me, just in a simple greeting. And I think that's historically and culturally instinctive for us to evolve. And I think we need all the connections that we have, because I think most of the time right now, we're more, with all the social media connections, it seems like we're more disconnected than ever.
Hey, listen, I was just saying that today, man, to some students. You would figure that they would be able to align themselves to do certain things, but they're not. They're disconnected from one another, even though they connected to one another.
Distrustful.
So I have a question on that, Ron. And
devices available.
Man, got that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, Brother Lionel, you had said that. What does that work together look like, right? And that's what I want to get to. How do we, as men and powerful kings within our own right, work together for a collective greater, a greater good, versus this dichotomy of thinking that if I didn't come up with it, it ain't mine, I can't really rock with it, right? Like there's always mistrust in collaboration versus collaboration, right? So what does that look like? I for myself, I've been asking myself for a long time, because of the way I grew up. I walk in a room, I see a black man, a Latino man, and a white man. I'm more comfortable with a black man than the Latino and then the white dude. It's just what it is. Why? Because my formative years in Nebraska, you're either white, black, or Mexican. And I was none of them three. I'm Colombian, light-skinned, blue eyes, brown hair, and I got game. So I'm a threat to everybody. So I associated to my teammates that I rocked with, that we would have rocked with just how we rocked with. And that was just my black teammates, because not a lot of Mexicans and Spanish play football at a collegiate level, right? So when you talk about friendships and partnerships, you go with what feels natural and what's yours, right? And I've asked myself, yeah, that's cool, but that's external flesh. That in itself still separates us as humans. And what I've asked myself is, how as a Latino, I was born in Colombia, brought to the States, not knowing English, but I had a mental capacity to think logically at that age, where my parents saw more value in my ability to be conscious than learned it. That's how I move now, right? So I say all that because how do we cross the bridge and make actual impact in our communities? Looking how we look, thinking how we think.
You know what? I think that we've got to get to the point, and I don't know how we've gotten this far left, that we are so distrustful of each other. Even to the point where, like you say, Lionel, you say, how's the family? Or how, what's up, fam? It's like, why you want to know? That's the first thing that kind of comes to the forefront. Why you want to know? But that's just mistrust. And I think what it boils down to is that we need to start get to the point where we have to say, listen, I know that you have my best interest at heart. That when you're speaking to me about something, you have my best interest at heart. Then I can trust you, because I can trust the information that not only you give me, but that I give you. And we get that mutual. But until we get to the point that we can actually believe that, listen, I could turn my back on you without, you stabbing me in my back. If we had to fight and we go back to back, we're gonna be fighting, for each other, and we're just, for some reason, we're just, to me, we're not to that point with everyone. And I think that's kind of pie in the sky that you're gonna be that way with everyone, but to a large majority of people, that you can be that way.
LJ, but I don't think, and I have a different philosophy when it comes to trust, because again, I don't, my philosophy on trust. I don't trust nobody. Not that it's a bad thing. I don't trust anybody as a principle thing, but I think it's my human right and your human right to try everybody. And so if I don't owe you no trust, and I know I don't, but I do owe you a try, that's your human right. It's my human right. And so I'm going to give everybody that try. And what I was telling you about Brother Lai Muhammad, what he did was, he didn't worry about the trust. He kept using that try. And every time he greeted me, he was at the try, and he was at the try. And guess what? Now I value the same try, and now I'm giving it to other people. So even when and the response is the same, is welcoming, because it takes away from the apprehension that people who don't know you understand, when you greet them, they're more apt to greet back. And so when I try to a lot on young men, I say, how you doing, fam? When I'm jogging in my neighborhood and I'm jogging by a group of young men, first of all, they surprised that I even spoke. That's the truth. And back to Castro point, and I mean, how are we gonna really start to break this? We gotta first acknowledge that people exist. And I'm gonna tell you something. We walk by people, and that's the greatest disrespect, is to walk by people who exist and not acknowledge their existence. And so before we even get into the color thing, the fact that we can't even acknowledge your human, you understand? We ain't gonna never reach you being a black man or a white man or a Hispanic man, and we just can't just acknowledge the fact that you're just human existing right now. And so the fact that that when I'm jogging and I'm making now conscious effort, I'm like, I don't care what the response is, because I think most of us don't reach out for the fear of a human thing called rejection. You understand? Everybody has it. Everybody has fear of rejection, but I still have an obligation, being an elder and being old, whatever authority I am in that situation, being a man or being an older man in that situation, whatever my authority is in that situation, I have an obligation, right, to create the environment. That's the word I'm looking for. We have an obligation as human beings to create the environment we want to see. And that can just simply start by acknowledging somebody's existence as opposed to just how they exist.
That's social duty. How do you teach that in this society? How do we implement that into the culture where people don't say nothing when they see something wrong happening? Literally across the street from them, you can see somebody getting mugged, no one saying anything.
Well, I think
how can you create a social moral responsibility?
But I think we do by doing exactly what Lionel kind of talked about, is doing it. Listen, There's no doubt. This is a scientific experiment that is true. If you walk into a place that's somebody you don't know and you frown, guess what's going to happen? They're going to frown back at your ass. You walk into a place you don't know the person, you smile, even if they want to frown, they got to smile because we as human beings are reactive. I have took on this mantle of trying people instead of trusting, and it has evolved me to a theory of this is a better idea for people to be involved in relationship with people because of all the human trauma we have that we don't know we have, or we don't let people know we have. So we are a lot of times triggered by things because we don't want to trust somebody. So don't trust them. As I say, Lionel say, try them. Then there's no fail, no harm, no whatever. Because guess what? You got nothing to lose in the end. If you find out your trying doesn't work and it doesn't operate, well, you just say, hey, and you don't have this hurt feeling like I gave something to this person. Now because trying don't mean that you gave anything. That means that you just, you got up, walked across the street. Okay? That you ain't build a house for them. You did something physical, not your whole spiritual, mental part of what it means when we trust people. We give so much more of ourselves. And if we already damaged, and I was thinking about this today, I was thinking as I was getting out of this car listening to, the lady on NPR was saying, oh, she was raped when she was a kid. And I just said that, do you know we have more? Listen, is there anybody in the world who don't have trauma? And that's a no. That would be a no. Everybody got trauma. So everybody gonna have some issues. There's no goddamn super person my life is super together. I ain't never had no problems. I don't even know what you're talking about. So if that is the case, this theory, this walk that Lionel's talking about, fathers, I ask you, I appeal to you as you listen to the words coming out of my mouth. Try it. Try trying people. Don't try to use the negative way we talk about it. Don't try nobody. We talking about try. Try. Don't try. 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 Don't trust. Try. And I had to tell one of my women friends recently, stop trying to trust this guy that you're involved with. Try him. Because you're about to push him away because you want something to fit into this magical thing. And if it don't work in the trust that you think it should, this relationship is over. But it don't have to be over because you can just try him. He might surprise you. People will surprise you. Listen, I've learned this experience about strangers. You know who people love me the most? People who love me, the individual Ron Osborne Williams. The people that love me the most is the people who did not like me, who also didn't know me. But then when they got to know me, they never wanted to leave. I'm like the O and the H2O. I'm like the O in that H2O. So you begin to see that sometimes we gotta try. And you may find out that's the person, that's your soulmate. But they look different. They was a little bit different. They heard some things about them. You might have had trauma from somebody who looked like them or somebody who was like, listen, we gotta, and I say this strongly to fathers and mothers who have these kids. You guys have to try. The trusting for you guys a lot of times is broken. It's broken. It's on the ground. 4 flat tires. But one thing if them jokers running in them 4 flat tires, guess what? When you see the high speed chase and all the tires flat, them jokers still riding on the rim. They riding on the rotors because they're trying to get away. That's what we got to try. We got to try to be with them, try to negotiate, try to understand this person, try to communicate with them, not have this idea that trust got to happen. I gotta have trust before I can communicate, because you're not gonna get it. That's not promised.
But and you know what? That's not the and truthfully, we align to ourselves, because I'm like, that's not the way we really function in society. And particularly for women, I say, because you know what? I can guarantee this. If you don't love nobody else, I can guarantee you love your child. Right? And that love comes with unlimited tries.
Exactly.
Very little trust. I got trust. I'm like, no, you can't. Because if I ask you that, you know you can't. Because one thing children are good at, they will disappoint you. Not in the long run, but in the short one, because children are supposed to disappoint you. You understand? They're evolving. They're ignorant yet innocent. You understand? So to try to take and put a trust on something that's growing. And now the problem is we limit the growth to the children. You understand? And we isolate it and smother and strangle it out in each other. And so we give the children all the room in the world to grow and kill each other growth. And so this is why we're more successful parents than we are spouses. Because we wanted to put the trust on the other, and then we wanted to put the try on the children, when you really should have been putting the try on everybody, because everybody is growing at the same time.
Say that part again. Say that part again, Reverend.
Rewind.
So
that's important. Listen.
Go ahead.
That is so, listen. Hey, Lana, that is so important. Listen. We keep acting like we are fully developed, and we're not. Listen, you can listen to, and I'm gonna give you a perfect example. Brother Jordan on here, and he'll tell you he learning every day. Now, Brother Jordan supposed to be setting his ways. He supposed to only see the things the way the life experience he had, but he not. He's still revolving, and that's what we sometimes forget. We gotta realize that in all these situations, this stuff, just like the world is revolving, we are still too. We're still revolving, and we gotta give that as. Listen, I told you I'm a tri warrior. I'm a tri warrior now, because I'm telling. Listen, I'm adding that into a large majority of my therapeutic work now. Stop with it. You don't trust them. You have a distrust. Well, just try them. Because I think that sounds logical. And guess what? What you lose in trying? You don't know what you're going to get, because you could try and it could all work out. But if you don't trust them and you never try, then guess what? You never find out. He might have changed. The man that was the dog.
Why do you think that's such an issue in our community? Why are we so hesitant to try relationships?
I can tell you, it's simple. Ron mentioned, I think maybe Lightburn mentioned, you got dented. What word we use? Dent and broken. So you're looking at maybe broken families, someone who's been dented or damaged, which is a common word. So what happens? Let's do the math. Majority of seniors live alone, and there is a reason for that. They have been maybe damaged or dented, and decide I'm just gonna walk down the aisle by myself. So there are many people out there who go around hurting people, maybe emotionally, financially, physically. So what I think Ron is saying, and Lightburn is saying, in terms of trying, I would say try, but also you have to hold on to your values. Because if you let your values down, if you lower your values, which we do that sometimes, there's consequences to that. So you can try anyone, but remember, hold on to your values, because that's you, that's your flag.
No, but I think
thank you for that.
Castro's question. You want to say something on LJ? LJ? Okay, good. All right, so LJ, not LJ, Castro, to Castro's point, why are we like that in our cultural society? I think it's more a societal issue than it is a cultural issue. And here's why. Because you got to remember, and particularly in a capitalist society, right? Mm-hmm. Remember, you're in a capitalist society, which value goods and services more than they actually value the good that serves, right? Simply put, it value people more than they value money. I mean, value money more than they value people.
Yes.
And so if this is true, because we're talking about being the difference between being just men versus being just a man. And where that come in at, if you're just a man, then you fall within the status quo of those injustices. And so injustices, again, come in three forms, right? You got your racism. But people may think, oh, the racism is the biggest form. I'm like, no, racism actually is the smallest injustice. Because if I say this, I would say, okay, would you agree that there are more women in the world than there are Black people? And you know what the answer is going to be? Yes. And then I can say, do you agree that there's more poor people in the world than women? And the answer again will be yes. And so if that is true, then racism is the start. That's the first quarter. The second quarter will be sexism. And the third quarter will be classism. And so when you start to hit them giants, right, percentile wise, because that's the business of injustice. The injustice actually have to keep you. You have to stay divided, because if you ever get united, especially getting united around something like humanity and being humane, the world will have a problem. The World Bank will have a problem. Let's just talk.
Yep.
And so when you have the business of racism, sexism, and classism, that's what drives the world economy. But at the minute humanity want to unify around a topic or just the purpose of being humane, the world has already changed by itself. It's going to change regardless. Change is inevitable when you're talking about rallying and uniting around humanity. But most people will divide at one of those three injustices rather, be it racism, sexism, or classism. And that's normally where we divide at. And so you may have 2 out of 3, but I can guarantee you nobody walking around without one of those 3 of those biases within their what they call implicit biases.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So can I say something?
Sure.
Yes. Yes.
That sounds very doable, right? It's going from history, right? We understand what happened and how the Chicano Latino movement was used to break the Black movement in the 60s, right? Just by sheer of these wetbacks are willing to do X, Y, Z. Y'all Black people are gonna go do X. Okay, deuces, right? So economics, right? How do we know how, right? It's adopting the mass concept of if we each deliver our value, economics are enough. For some reason, people have the thought concept that there isn't enough, that there's scarcity in the world. There isn't enough money. There isn't enough resource. Like, they're printing money. Money's being printed. There's more millionaires every day. Like, the concept of money is the construct of that, the society that we're under is not really what's really popping off, right? Like, there's a whole world within the world being played different. And if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't, right? And that's just what I've come to understand about having access, right? My wife said something to me yesterday. She said, that's called nepotism. I said, no, it's called brotherhood. That's what I pledged for. So I can make that kind of phone call. Because if I was a white dude saying, hey, I need my son in this school, in this program, how'd that work, right? So if you have the relationships, you have the access, you have the network, you have why aren't you maximizing it to benefit your life, to benefit your society, to benefit your impact, right? How do you become greater? So if we continue these conversations and we're not actually doing something in our communities because of my relationships and your relationship, Lightborn and Lawrence, that we live in this community, like, we're tripping. We're fucking bugging, bro. We're not serving society by not doing what we're talking about doing. Like, we need to actually now do it. That's a call to action.
So Castro, a quick answer to that.
Yes.
You have a car that was built in 1970, a Monte Carlo, and 1901, maybe 1988, Monte Carlo. We are doing a lot of things we're teaching children today are in the same or old school. Many things that are like credit, domestic violence, financial literature. Many things are not being taught maybe by the teachers and the parents, because both come together to teach. And if we don't have those things ingrained in our children, and what is ingrained is what we call learned behavior, where you see that every day. You see the dude called LJ's son the N-word. Those are all learned behavior. And not only was it learned behavior, he also executed the behavior. So if you look at other nationalities, they come together, they work together. They are disciplined, if that's the right word. They are disciplined and they also execute their discipline. So
I believe that there's a history to structure, right? And that's what religion gives us, right? When you talk about, I'm not Jewish, but I live in South Florida and there's a lot of Jewish here, right? My son sees, I live across the street from a mosque, right? A synagogue. And you, in Nebraska, you're either white, black, or Mexican. What is Jew, right? I've had somebody ask me, I didn't know they had black people in Mexico, right? Because of your level of awareness or acceptance to what's around you, right? That's an excuse for so long. That's a barrier for so long. At another point, you're just like, what are we doing, right? So when I speak and I'm asking for like a call to action in a sense, because I think that's kind of what I alluded to, is how do we talk about the higher level things, executive functions, how to manage yourself as a person, as a human being, as a child of God, right? Don't play small. Why are you playing small? Right? Because you're scared. Like I'm gonna tell you right now, I've been on fire today because this morning I started with gratitude, and then my gratitude, it took me down this crazy rabbit hole. But I realized that my father did some shit that, like, I questioned it as a man. My dad stayed with my mom till I was 18. My mom and my dad got divorced when I was 8. On my 18th birthday, my dad was like, I'm out. And when I was 22, I was like, bro, why'd you do that? Like, why? You didn't love her? You didn't like, why'd you stay there? He's like, I didn't want you to grow up with a dad like I did. My dad died when I was 12, my grandfather, right? And I realized how that subconsciously had played in my life. Guilt on how I move, guilt on how I don't move, how I don't come through in certain things, right? Because my abandonment issues, in a sense, or guilt because my dad made a decision because of me. I got nothing to do with that. Right? So whatever you decide to bury yourself under, your shadow, you got to deal with that and then move the fuck on. Because life is like, life keeps going, right? Like we're moving in life. So I'm looking at this from a perspective of circumstances are rough. A lot of circumstances were some decision of all your decisions. They're outcomes of all the decisions that you've made as an individual man, right? And that's where some of all our decisions. And I think that I guess to use the word of the holiday, atonement, is something that you got to be dealing with. You got to look at yourself as a man and say, okay, this is where it's at. This is what I am here because of what I've done, good, bad, or indifferent, right? And I remember my mom always telling me, dime con quién tú eres dime con quién tú andas y te digo quién tú eres. Tell me who you're riding with and I'll tell you who you are, right? We're in this room having these elevated consciousness conversations. I don't even know what happened on Monday Night Football because I don't watch football anymore, right? Because the room is different, right? So I appreciate you, men, and what this is, and just the easiness of being able to function with my kids in the background, and then them knowing that I'm in this conversation because I care about what benefits them, right? So, and that's to me, that's what bridge building is. Be the model, be the example, because you building bridges, but who's really going to get on them?
Right. Exactly. You gotta show how it's done. Hey man, hey guys, this has been the conversation tonight has been lit. We think these conversations, we don't know where these conversations are gonna go when we come with the topics. But I tell you, man, I know this. I feel good leaving tonight. I don't know about it. Listen, I know that, you know, and listen, I'm gonna tell you something. I remember when I used to go on and I'm gonna say this as I'm closing. I remember I used to go on Clubhouse, right? And be on the little conversations on there. I never felt good after those conversations. I either felt like I wasn't able to be heard, what I had to say didn't matter, because there was a group of people who had their own opinion or whatever. And that probably what motivated this to even wants to get to where we at right now today, because I felt like I wanted to be in a space where I could feel good and people could feel good as well. And this is I think this is a place where at the end of every one of these nights, right before we, you know, do our chant, we feel good. And we even feel better when we go from off of here. So I just want to thank you guys for coming on tonight, man. It was really good. I hope that people who are watching this, watching the replay, listen to all the gems. Listen, this is almost like the gold rush. If you sit through it long enough and keep digging and listening, you're gonna hear so many things that's gonna be so valuable to you. If not now, later. You know, and I'll say that about the majority. Listen, I will say again, like, share, subscribe to Fatherhood Talks. Go back and look at some of the old ones. The old ones definitely got the same. If you think this one's something, some of them, boy, they was on fire. They were on fire. And you know, you never know what we were talking about. But it wasn't just you know, when I say on fire, they wasn't on fire like burning you up. It was a fire like keeping you warm on a cold winter night. And with that being said, let me just say, fathers, I am a man of honor. I am a man of courage.
I am a man of courage.
I am a man of respect.
A man of
Respect.
Fathers, I said tonight, I want you to know that
I am.
I said that you are.
You are.
I said that we are.
We are.
Championship.
Yes, sir.
See,
I've been like the champion of that 5 championship.
he do that because listen, he not just holding up his kids, he also holding up grandkids. So he got to get really up there. He got to get big and strong when you holding up the family. And so again, we'll see you again next week. Next week, guys, we have a special episode of Fatherhood Talk. We'll be having a special guest coming on. And we're going to be having a conversation what everything fathers need to know about HIV and AIDS. We'll be having a special guest come on and speak to us. And we're going to ask questions and have a real lively discussion about how important is HIV and AIDS to us as fathers in our community. You know, what do we know about it? Or do we feel like, well, I'm a father, I ain't got to worry about that. I don't got to tell my kids about it. I don't got to do any of those things. And then we're going to have somebody on. He's going to talk a little bit about it, and we're going to have a conversation around that. So we'll see y'all here next week. But if fathers, if you really want to get down and dirty tomorrow, we'll be finishing this conversation in the private fatherhood Zoom. Look down in the bio, down in the chat, and you can see how to connect to the Zoom tomorrow night. Other than that, thank you. Good night. Thank you, guys. We'll see y'all here either tomorrow night or next week.
All right, brother. Have a great one.